Greetings, folks. Today I'm at a loss what to talk about, to be honest with you, because I realize that I'm repetitive and I'm talking about the same things. But as somebody said, good propaganda is repetitive. In fact, what I'm trying to do is destroy the propaganda of the West and open up people's mind to the reality of the world. Because folks, those of us who've grown up in the West, we've grown up in the golden era. We've grown up in a prosperous era, a time of great music, a time of interesting culture, a time of mixing races. But it wasn't always like that with the West, folks. Now, a lot of people in Macedonia, when you speak about the West, they're in awe and they go, wow, Zapad, Vievo Zapad. Well, I've got news for my friends in Macedonia. We, Nievo Zapad, we are no smarter, we are no better, we are no more informed. In fact, you could say we're more uninformed because of the pressure of our society's propaganda. We live in a world of not just overt, but covert propaganda. That's stories told rather than propaganda being pushed. It's fairy tales told. And that's what I want to talk about today, really. It just came to me now. I want to talk about the fairy tales of the West. You know, the West holds itself up as the most civilized place in the world, as the richest place in the world. And that's true. They are the richest place in the world. But are they the most civilized? And how did they become so rich? Because folks, during the ancient times when Macedonia had an empire extending to India, and Pala was this beautiful ancient city, France, Germany, England, Spain were literally living in mud brick thatched houses, villages. And they had no universities, no schools, no nothing. The West was the edge of the known world. And by the edge of the known world, I mean literally in those days, we didn't know that there was such a thing as the Americas. We didn't even know how to get to China, other than going the usual route around the bottom of Africa and around India and so on. Now, even those routes, they were only discovered in the 1400s. So really, the West lived in isolation from the rest of the world, where civilization started. Now, people are always arguing where civilization started. Now, folks, what we do know is that civilizations, ancient civilizations, and by civilizations I mean places where there were cities and some form of writing and some form of government, not just tribal people like there was in the West. Now, folks, civilizations, they didn't start in England, they didn't start in France or Germany or anywhere. They were the edge, they were the barbarians of the world. Civilization started in Sumer, in Egypt, in China, in the Indus Valley. That's where civilization started. Not on the Thames or the Rhine and so on. Now, the reason the West becomes important to the world, before that it was nothing, absolutely nothing. The only time that they became part of the world is when they sent crusaders, in other words, the second sons of the aristocracy who had no wealth and needed to earn some money, so they went so they could rob the Middle East. So that's when the West becomes part of the world, and they became part of the world as crusaders, in other words, as murderers and thieves. Before that, they were nothing. Eventually, Christopher Columbus, on his way to China and India, Christopher Columbus on his way to China and India, guess what happens? He runs into America. And when he runs into America, guess what happens there? He finds a country full of wealth, full of resources, full of gold, full of silver, like Argentina, which actually means silver. And slowly, the West becomes rich. And how does the West become rich? Through the plunder of the Americas. Now, folks, those of you in Eastern Europe who've become obsessed with the West and want to become like the West, if you want to become like the West, be prepared to sell your souls to the devil. In other words, be prepared to become racist, become liars and thieves, because that's how the West became rich. The West didn't become rich because they built factories and industrialized. No. The West became rich through the theft of the resources of the Americas, and later on the theft of the resources of Africa and Asia. So, if you want to become rich, my fellow Macedonians, find a continent. You won't find a continent, find another planet full of wealth, because that's literally what happened. When they found the Americas, they called it the New World. And it was a new world, a world that they had no connection with, didn't know anything about, but a world full of wealth. And slowly but surely, at the point of a gun or at the point of a sword, the indigenous people of the Americas were killed and their wealth taken. That's why we in the West are rich. We ain't rich because we're smarter or harder working. We're rich because we live off the wealth of the countries that we've colonized and robbed. Now, unfortunately, there are no other countries like that left for us Macedonians or Eastern Europeans to get rich. We have to do it by ourselves. But even then, we can't even do it by ourselves, because there is Big Brother, Uncle Sam, who wants to control the world, and not for the interests of us. He wants to control the world, not for the interests even of the American people. The whole point about the West and America controlling the world is so that its rich can get richer, because we can all see what's happening in America, folks. The richest country in the world, with a crumbling infrastructure, growing incredible poverty, homelessness, racist attacks, and this is the country we're looking up to. I'm sorry, folks. I grew up loving America, and I still do. I love parts of America, but I do not love American ruling class and its imperialist, racist destruction of anyone else in the world who does not accept them as their overlords. Thanks very much, folks.